Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, where the mind and gym come together to help you live your best life. Hosted by two fitness professionals and your personal trainers, Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie. And welcome back once again to the Think Fitness Life podcast. This week we are doing a quick intro, Eric and I, and then leading off into a interview that Eric conducted, and he will give more information on that interview in just a second. Before we get into that, though, we want to talk about our weekly workout and our food for thought, of course. So our weekly workout is a powerful, killer 10-15 minute workout that really taxes the system. You're going to get warmed up, get loose, get activated, and then you're going to do a max push-ups. So push-ups to failure, then 10 squat jumps, and then a 75-yard sprint, 100-yard sprint if you want to go the extra mile, and then walk back and repeat that 6 times and shut down the system, stretch, and get out of there.
Just pure conditioning right there.
100%. And it's good timing to get outside, get that heat on you, get the sun on you, get that vitamin D, and just get out of the house a little bit, but stay 6 feet apart from anybody. So our food for thought comes out of inspiration from our interviewee. So the quote is by Mohadisa Nahumi, and it is, "The woman who does not require validation from anyone is the most feared individual on the planet." And I'll let Eric explain why that's relevant.
Yeah, I'd fear for that too, 100%. So we interviewed my longtime friend and colleague, Jenn Canniff. Now we met in freshman year of college. I do believe it was human kinesiology class.
This is at Springfield?
This is at Bridgewater. And then she transferred to Springfield.
Okay.
That was our intro class. We started in the same
program?
Same program. There we go. Same program. And then we both kind of veered off of that program into what we do now. And she is a personal trainer. She does female fitness. And what Matt's quote just blew out of the water is she takes that and multiplies it to the nth level. I mean, she is all for women's fitness, putting fear behind women, lifting and performing and feeling good about themselves. And I think that is one of the biggest takeaways of this interview. And she did the setting it straight, because we kind of talked about, as men in this field, we don't have the real experience of lifting or exercising in a women's body, and it's completely different. So we did
100%
dive in and talk about the differences of that and how it can relate and how she sees it coaching from a woman aspect, and how people are more receptive if it comes from a woman's advice, a woman's coach. And I thought that was really good. She basically, kind of blew the old conception like, oh, hey, 12 to 20 reps is ideal. She was like, nope, lift heavy, move heavy things, be a dominant force in the gym. So it's a really good listen. I think people are really going to enjoy it, and they'll find her, and she crushes it on a daily basis. She competed in two or three, I think, bikini contests. She was supposed to do one this year, but due to this year being 2020, it didn't happen. So she is still hitting it hard in the gym, crushing the weights and making progress.
And she trains out of Massachusetts?
Yes, she trains out of Peak Kinetics. So peakkinetics.com. It's her and her boyfriend run that. They do in-person and online platform training, app, whole 9 yard there.
I love it. And I love how versatile trainers are, because obviously we love to see people in person, but with the current times that we face, we all need to offer online and remote training. So I love that she's all about empowering women, because I feel like that's definitely a area that needs to be built up more.
especially in this field,
And
the lifting,
yeah,
working out.
oh, 100%, 100%, because there's so many misconceptions and
And there
um,
are differences. I think that's a big thing.
misguidance out there. Oh, for sure.
And
Like testosterone levels,
yeah,
hormone profiles in general.
we tapped into all that stuff. So it's going to be, it's just different. As coaches, we're taught this. We know about the differences, but we like I said, we
But
can't
we don't
experience
experience
it.
them.
So when it
Yeah.
comes from talking to Jen on that aspect of it, it was like, whoa, all right. So you have to go approach things a little bit differently um, when you're training the female body, and it's ways that they kind of have to do. I wouldn't say more, but they gotta have to do a little bit more because they don't have the hormones that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really excited that we're leading off our interviews this season with Jen, because she just seems like such a powerful force and very inspiring, and extrinsically motivating to other females and just people in general. I mean, as a male, you can get a lot out of this, into the insight into maybe helping your girlfriend or your wife or your spouse or your friend also excel in the gym as well. And it also just kind of gives you a little bit more perspective in terms of acknowledging the sort of head start that we may get as a male just by our um, lean body mass, our hormone profiles, and yeah. So I'm really excited that she came on board and you got to interview her.
Yeah, it's good catching up with her after so many years. I mean we met in '09, so it's been that long, and we're still on same path, same career paths. It's kind of like one of these, the world has these weird things that just kind of like, all right, you're gonna meet this person, and you might not talk to them for 5 or 6 years,
Yeah,
but they're on the
yeah,
same exact path, did very similar things. I think Jen and I are always going to have that. It's kind of funny. We're 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 kind of those exercise trainer coaches. We just fall right into that mindset, that mode.
yeah. It's like an arc. It's like you meet all these people in your life, and then some of them come back in like an arc, and um, you just connect with them again, and it's like you picked up right where you left off, and you both were on a journey when you met in the beginning, and still following on that journey when you come together again. So that's great. And I'm glad you reached out to her.
Yeah, and it's great 'cause it's all for the love of health, fitness, and this career that we've chosen, all of us.
Well, I think that's about all we got for you folks, and we'll just let Eric and Jen take over. So enjoy.
How are you doing?
I'm good. You?
Good. I was actually just telling my boyfriend a little bit about you because I was like, oh my god, because I actually just brought up a story not too long ago, but about Bridgewater because we were talking about how it was funny thinking about like how Bridgewater had no support whatsoever for our type of program,
Oh,
and
I know.
I was telling him, I was like, oh yeah, so I met Eric back at Bridgewater and we both went for AT and then we were trying to go to exercise science and they had nothing for us
Yep.
there. And you stayed, no, you transferred too, right?
No, I stayed.
You did stay?
Yeah.
So when did you end up finishing?
I finished in 4 years.
You did. Awesome.
Yeah. I think looking back, you probably made the better move to Springfield with their program because you look at their stuff, and I met a lot of people from Springfield. I'm like, damn.
I knew somebody who left
Yeah.
there.
But unfortunately, that our program kind of fell even off. Like I went and
Yeah.
did my master's there too, and it was just downhill.
So what did you
But
say for masters?
strength and conditioning.
Oh, you did. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stunk that like you didn't have that like just availability there to be able to expand through the program because they just didn't have enough support for us. There was like 3 classes available and like 2 professors. So
Yeah. And what did you get far into those classes? I know obviously the biomechanics. No, was it the anatomy class?
yep. It was
That
the
trusty
anatomy
old
one.
book.
Oh, that thing. I feel like
I
all my
still
books
have it.
got bigger. Do you still have it?
Yeah. I was
That's
looking at it the other day and I see my notes. I'm like, oh my goodness.
I have a big box in our storage room of all my old books that I kept. I have a
They're
couple
so
of
good though.
the first responder one that we had. It was like the CPR, but it was like mixed in with the AT class. I forget what it was called, but I still have like a couple books from there because I actually really love that class.
Yeah, that was good. I think I made it 2 classes into AT, then I was like, I'm switching.
Yeah, we pretty much decided at the same time because we were just both
Yeah.
like, we want to do this, but we don't. And then that's why I went
Oh,
to
that was
Springfield
crazy.
because I still wasn't sure because I was still wanting PT. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do PT AT. And then I realized how actual hard that is. And then I totally was like, no, I'm just going to go with exercise science. So I kind of just like, it was nice to be able to have those options there if I needed it though. So that was cool.
And I'm sure like the I think the lab at Springfield's unbelievable.
It's
Like
insane.
I've
Yeah.
seen pictures of it. I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah. So did you ever get to experience a cadaver lab?
I have, yeah. Not through Bridgewater though. Not through Bridgewater.
Interesting.
Just separate on my own. That was kind of something I think, especially was missing from the science aspect of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that was really cool that you could like dive in. Their labs were insane there. That's one of the benefits, like not only just their cadaver labs, but their actual like hands-on labs that they all had too, was really cool. So a lot of experience there, which is awesome.
All
So
good.
I loved it.
So let's back it up
Yeah, let's do it.
way back. So obviously, for people who don't know you, you are Jen.
Yes.
You are a trainer. We first met at Bridgewater in the AT program, like you said, which we didn't survive it. I think we switched. What made you do AT? Like, what started your journey in this field?
Yeah, actually, my AT in high school was the reason that I decided to get into it. He inspired me, and was actually the main reason why I wanted to do ATPT because he actually did both. And he was our AT in high school. And the first time I actually was in a weight room, it was freshman year of high school. That was the first time I, as a female, was ever exposed to weight room. And we went through a strength and conditioning program that he put together for us going into our freshman soccer year. And we were only because our coaches switched throughout high school. And our second coach that we had really wasn't a huge stickler of the strength and conditioning program for high school female athletes for whatever reason back then. So that first year that we used him and we did strength and conditioning, I fell in love with the idea of lifting in general. It was a really cool feeling to all of a sudden see some muscles and to lift some heavy stuff, which I love. And then the best kind of relationship that I had together with it is that was one of the best years, not only performance wise, but I didn't get hurt at all. And it was insane too, because I was a freshman and I thankfully I was one of the two freshmen who got onto varsity my freshman year, and neither
Right
one of
on.
us got hurt. And we could have been at such an accelerated level. And thankfully we didn't with all the playing time we had. And he was like my main driving force as to why I wanted to go into AT in the first place. So that's where I started with my love for AT. What ended up switching it was actually my hatred of being outside in the cold and rain. I was like, I think I'm suited for an indoor job. That's
so
what
that so
changed
that
it.
was that was the main driver. You were kind of like,
Absolutely. Yeah. He was
you,
awesome. He was like really all about just being there for us, so being hands on. His expertise, his intelligence about everything was just like something. He was just a huge role model to me. So he was really, truly my inspiration for wanting to get into it.
now was he a strength? Obviously, he was a strength coach too, right?
Yeah, so he was literally dibble dabbling in everything, which was really fun. So it was kind of cool to see that you could have that many titles, which is also why I think I really kind of attached to him as such a role model in my eyes, because it was kind of cool to like see that you didn't have to just be one thing, that you could be very diverse. So he helped me when I did have a couple injuries later on in high school when we didn't really have the strength and conditioning program going on. And at that time when we were getting started, like strength and conditioning coaches like weren't really well known. So a lot of schools, especially high schools, didn't have them at that level because they were only pretty much like the level of college, and that's pretty much all anybody heard about them for. So it was kind of cool to be able to have that kind of like very diverse job that he had to be able to kind of be a little bit of everything.
And crazy nowadays, I mean, almost most high schools have strength coaches now and ATs separately. It's
I'm
like
so
this
jealous.
ever-growing field. Yeah, I think even for me, that was a little one thing for the AT was, well, A, I couldn't play sports, but it wasn't, it was more hands-on, like treating injuries and not my passion of like lifting and preventing injuries. Now, obviously, I was a freshman. I had no idea what I'm stepping into.
Absolutely.
Uh, Now, when you were at Bridgewater, did you switch to exercise science first, or did you transfer to Springfield for exercise science?
I transferred first. So I was purely AT, but then we ended up, I remember this so vividly, we ended up meeting with our advisors, and I remember them telling me that there weren't enough classes and spots in each class to be able to support us, especially if we wanted to change to like exercise science there. So I stayed with
Really?
AT for both semesters, and then that's when I found Springfield and was like, okay, this is a school still in Massachusetts, which I wanted to stay in. But it has all those options of ATPT and exercise science. So I did AT both years at Bridgewater, but then when I transferred to Springfield, I was actually heading more towards PT at the time first.
Nice.
Then the same thing kind of happened because one, I was a transfer, and two, the PT program is so accelerated there at Springfield. I was going to be about a year and a half behind graduating anyways.
Oh, wow.
So then I decided to make the last minute switch because they were like, you can either head onto the path of PT, but in order to get there, because you're a transfer, you have to go for sports biology first. Then you can go and finish your doctorate to finish up PT. So in my eyes, I was thinking, what can I, if I graduated, if I didn't actually go through with PT, what do I do with a sports bio degree? Like if I just had that. And I felt very limited. So I figured that I would go then on the track of exercise science instead. Because if I wanted to, I could immediately straight out of the gate get out of college and go right into at least a job setting and then try to figure it out later. So I actually went back to school after I graduated Springfield with an exercise science degree, and I decided to go back for my physical therapy assistance degree. So I have a degree in that as well as a PTA. So I went for the assistance degree because it was a like
Awesome.
shorter time frame.
I think that's the correct way to do it. In my opinion, I just, you can get so much out of exercise science and then decide if you wanted to go to PT. Because that was my second choice after AT
Yeah.
was, oh, let me go to PT. And I was like, and then they were like, okay, just go into exercise science and see what you like. Then you can decide to go to PT school.
Yeah.
So I think at the time, one of my professors says it was another 4 years after you graduated. So I was like, okay, but I got into exercise science and fell in love with it, and here we are today.
Exactly. It's and just like you said too, I'm excited that I went on the path of exercise science first because I actually found out, I don't know if it was the school that I went to for the PTA, but they kind of ruined my love for anything that had to do with like physical therapy. And I never ended
Really?
up pursuing it once I got my license. And I just stayed with personal training in general with exercise science. But it's nice because I do have the rehab background, and I love that because I use that a lot with my own clients. But I was able to accelerate so well with the PTA, the physical therapy, because of my background in exercise science. So it was really interesting. Like it was really kind of like a good solid ground to have exercise science as my foundation and then grow up from there. So I agree with you 100%.
In what ways did you not think the PT school fulfilled what you were looking for?
So I had a couple of like personal issues with the program. So again, PTA is a really small program because it's not your doctorate program. So being a physical therapy assistant is only a 2.5 year program, which is what I needed because I was already in school for so long. So I couldn't go for another 4 years, like you said. And so they don't have a lot of schools that actually educate people in physical therapy assistance because we have different focuses. And so we have to be really careful not to kind of cross over each other's paths because I'm not as qualified as a doctorate degree. So you have to be
Gotcha.
really careful of that dynamic. And not a lot of people know how to teach properly teach that. So Bay State College in Boston was a school that I went to for the PTA. And it's interesting. I was always taught at Springfield that our professors are there to build you up to always be successful, no matter what. So if you start falling behind, they have a lot of resources to kind of help you, like, just get ahead and do whatever you need to be successful. And unfortunately, I had to work full time at the time that I put myself back through school again for a second time. So I had to pay for it out of my pocket. So they did not like the fact that I had to work and go to school. And it was a hardship in terms of like a financial struggle to balance it. I felt very unsupported with the program. They actually felt like they didn't like that I had an exercise science degree already, because I did challenge them back on a couple of their ideas, because I was like, well, I'm working with a client that had XYZ. So why do you teach this if that's actually not the reality that I've seen in person? Mind you, I'm totally open. I can see all sides of a situation, but they almost seemed a little bit too close-minded with everything. And then by the end of it, I kind of just had like a sour taste in my mouth with like how they put us through the program. And I was like, whew, once I graduated, I was like, thank goodness I'm done. I graduated one of, I think we had like 20 something students that finished. We had 90 to start. So it was a really tough program to go through. So I was very proud to at least finish it. But then when I finished, I was like, well, I really love that I can use that, again, rehab background in exercise science. And I actually found a way to be able to make actually more money in my field of personal training than I ever would in the rehab background. So I decided to stick with the personal training aspect and then just incorporate rehab with my experience that I've learned.
That is the way to do it.
Yeah.
I've heard that too, and I've thought about PT school, but I think sometimes they're teach by a certain method, by their books,
Yeah.
styles, and standards, and it can go not against, but it's just nowadays we can learn different ways and different approaches to do things.
Yeah.
And like you said, it doesn't coincide exactly with where you're going with. And
Absolutely.
I think it's great that you said, "Hey, I have this knowledge, but now I can apply it to my own business and practice, and it's like bang for your buck, more money."
Absolutely. So it's interesting because you kind of think that you would make more money in physical therapy. And I had to do a lot of digging. But then I realized I could go much farther with the personal training. And I was like, absolutely. And that's where my heart is at the end of the day. So I love that.
Yes, that is key right there.
Yeah.
Now, when you were going through school, were you full-time training too?
I ended up cutting down, going part-time. I was in the first semester and that killed me for sure. So I ended up having to pull back. So I I think my first personal training client I ever got was at Springfield, and it was great because I was working with one of our professors, and she put me in a program to be able to help train some of her clinical trials and her students for the clinical trials. So that was my first time ever like working with personal training. And then I got a job straight out of college, which was great. And then while I was going through PTA school, I continued with my same clients, then had to kind of dwindle back towards the end because it was getting so hard to balance both, and then picked right back up as soon as I was done.
Long days, short nights, and that's the life of grad school.
Absolutely. Yeah. I personal trained usually like in the morning and the afternoons when I was like before and after class, and then I waitressed at night. So then I would be in bed by 3, wake up by 4, and restart the day.
Yep. It's kind of the path I tell people who are more the grad school aspect. Like that's your in this field, like that's what it's going to look like. You're just kind of going
Absolutely.
to burn yourself for about 2 years,
Oh, yeah.
but it's worth it on the end when you can set your own schedule, make your own business, and all that stuff.
Absolutely. It made me very grateful for the real world and grateful to be done with schooling. But I kept telling myself it's a temporary grind in order to make it count. So, and I really feel like it finally is starting to pay off.
So taking that together, where are you now?
So I'm really excited. So actually, I met my current boyfriend right now. We've been together for 7 years. I met him at Springfield, and he was going for the same degree, exercise science. And we met through mutual friends. And then he was great because he was able to help me set up an internship at his personal training studio that him and his mom own in Andover, Massachusetts. So I needed a clinical site to be at. So I kind of like just set up my internship there because it was really awesome. I needed to save some money that last semester too that I was doing my internship. So they kind of like took me in, which was great, while they were still able to like let me work for my internship hours. And so then after that, we graduated, and then he was personal training and I was too. I started personal training in his studio. But I also do have a love for group fitness. I got into group fitness and while I was in college too. So I was kind of like going back and forth between the two things. So I was going back and forth and doing some group training and some personal training. And then I started doing all group training and tried to get into a management role at an Orange Theory that I was working at. And I'm actually working my way out and going back to personal training. So I love that we can kind of go through both. But right now, actually, my boyfriend just decided to make a great move, which is awesome. I couldn't join him at the start of it, but I supported him the whole way. He decided to go completely online for an online training business that he came up with an idea. We rattled together and I told him to get started on it. And when I could totally jump in with him. So he's been doing his Peak Kinetics online personal training, which is awesome, since 2018. And I jumped on with him last May of 2019. So we've been doing this together for about a year. So we do in-person training, but now we also do our online personal training business, and that is exploding right now, and we're loving it. We're going to hope to expand that next.
That's awesome. Actually, I'm sure with the last 5 months we've been dealing with, your clients and other people are loving the online platform.
Absolutely. It was nice that when that happened, we were like, oh, we already have this platform set up. So ready, set, go. And we just put all our in-person right there. So it was a nice little transition, but it's great. We felt that with personal training in person, we have so many networks across so many different states. It was really hard to be able to connect with them being isolated to one small area. So that's where we came up with the idea, and he went through with it, with building, again, a way to be able to help more people in many different places without having to come see us in Andover, Mass. So that's where the idea kind of stems from. And so that's why we're actually working on expanding that idea now. So it's kind of a good kind of little setup that we're building together now.
Now, is it for this training? Is there? How do people find it? Is it an app or is it online?
Yeah, so we go through an app right now. There's a platform that we use that we can integrate our kind of business into, which is really nice. So one day we're looking to build our own personal app that it like has. We were going through a different training app, and so people can they have to contact us, and everything again is very like one-on-one, private, and personal. So you can't just like sign up for it and go. Like there's a lot that goes into it that we as coaches want to make sure that we prepare people for, especially our clients when we're going into it. We want to make sure that we're a right fit for them and they're a right fit for our program too, because we only want to set people up for success. So if there's ever a situation where we think it might not work out the best being a virtual training, because it's not for everybody, we tried to guide them in a different direction to be able to help them. But they contact us and they set it up through us. And then once we feel like it's a fit on both sides, that we're a fit for them, they're a fit for us, we set them up on our app and then we take them through the entire program. And that also includes a nutrition as well, because we're both certified in nutrition. So we have that both kind of integrated into our program, which is really cool. So everything's online and we try to make the program as personal as possible. So we tell our clients it's literally like we're there with you without being with you. That's the kind of experience we made.
Nice. And so you're doing virtual sessions, in-person sessions.
Yep.
Your day's just loaded.
Very much so. I love it. I'm busy as anything, but like I said, and I'm sure you can relate, being in a job that you love, I love the busy work of it. It gets exhausting, but it's a good exhausting. I'd rather have that.
Yeah. People often ask, oh, do you like getting up at 4:30? I'm like, yeah, because I get to, go to work out and, train a bunch of people. For anyone who's listening, who's not in this, it's a long day.
Yeah.
You can be out at 7 or 8 p.m., but you're changing people's lives each and every day, minimally sometimes maximally, but that's the joy of it.
Yeah.
Some people don't get that.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like, there's a lot that we get out of that I totally enjoy. So I have a group of girls that I'm training right now, all virtually. And when we just did our check-ins at the halfway point of our challenge group, it's one of the best feelings to be able to just hear how they are growing personally and changing as an individual themselves. Because I tell them it's not just about your physical transformation, it's also about your mental, your spiritual, your emotional. Everything goes into your transformation more than just a number on the scale. And I think that just is one of the best kind of like heartfelt moments when my clients like connect with that, and then you get to hear their experience about it, and then you're like, yes, that's what I was going for. And it's really cool to change people's lives. I love it.
So you have a lot of clients. Do you have a lot of groups? Do you do private, semi-private, one-on-one, or are you kind of all across the board here?
Yeah, so when it comes to our online platform, I decided to kind of branch with Brian's idea of being one-on-one, and I decided to kind of build the idea of a group of community of, and I work specifically with females. That's just a preference that I've always had that I wanted to work with. So I specifically work with females. He works with both. And so I told him I want to make like a safe space for females to be able to gather together, because I have found from my group training experiences that people really like love the camaraderie and the community aspect of a group setting. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, because again, there are some people out there that need that one-on-one attention, which is still great. But I decided to kind of branch off and really kind of roll with this group idea. So I've now had 3 different groups of girls that I've had, and it's just grown and grown and grown each time, which is amazing. So I love that. So I usually do both. So I have a couple clients that are one-on-one virtually, and then I have my group challenge that's going right now, and that usually goes on about 3 times throughout the year that we do that. And then actually in person, I do one-on-ones with Ryan, but I still do a little bit of group training with Orange Theory in Burlington.
So you're getting a little bit of everything, a little taste of everything you love.
If you can tell, remember, circle back to my role model. He did a little bit of everything. I guess that's where I picked it up from.
It's sort of the hat we take as trainers and coaches. It's not just weights, it's nutrition, and then what you said. I mean, it's mindset. That's the
Absolutely.
biggest thing. And we're pretty big on it here. That plays a huge role in training.
Absolutely.
And everything else through life, through ups and downs of our own careers and successes and whatnot. How have you kind of taken mindset into your kind of like your training styles or your coaching, either
Yes.
for you or for your clients?
So mindset's huge, especially for me. I know it's always been for Ryan, and I think that's why we work so well together, is because we both really have the same values when it comes to helping our clients. But mindset is actually one of the biggest things that we try to hone into with our clients, because you have to have the right mindset going in. Now, we only work with certain clients. The reason being is because we want to make sure they're in the right mindset before they get in, knowing that this is going to, 1, be a challenge, 2, it's not going to happen overnight. 3, that they do have to change some ways that they do things currently, but also understand that they don't have to be like so restrictive on certain diets. They don't have to kill themselves with exercise. So I want to make sure that they understand that they can have the right mindset going into it, that they can actually have a sustainable life with their goals in mind. Like, it doesn't just have to be a temporary thing. So if I have a couple clients that are like getting ready for a wedding or whatnot, that's a big thing right now. I tell them, listen, I know that's a great goal to have temporarily, but what about long term? Because that mindset's going to help drive you. Because the biggest thing that I tell my own clients is you can't rely on motivation to always be there. There's going to be days where you feel like super down, you feel unmotivated, especially during quarantine. We love Netflix and chilling. So you can't rely on motivation to be there. So you have to have a bigger why as to why you want to be doing this and transforming your life through health and fitness in order to be successful long term, or else it's going to be a temporary thing, and then you might just fall right back into the beginning. So when my girls start to like fall off track, having that mindset that they had in the beginning, I remind them of that, and it helps kind of redrive them back into a new focus. And I found that my girls work really, really well long term, holding on to their successes that they gained in working with me for a short period of time. So it's really cool to see those habits go long term for sure. And again, we all go through stress. We all deal with sleepless nights. Like if we're in grad school, we're not sleeping. But all those combined together, like they have a huge effect on your transformation. So if you're not sleeping right, if your head's not right, if you're super stressed, it's going to affect where you are in your life. And if you want to continue to be successful, I think health and fitness is a great foundation to bring you on so many different levels, even for other things that you have in your life.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I know I've kind of followed you over the years. You've
Yeah,
done some shows, right?
absolutely. Yeah, so I do that as a side hobby. I love it. I've competed now in I think four shows. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Are you still competing? I know this year they kind of canceled everything, but
Yes, they I was supposed to compete in April. I compete with the WBFF. There's different organizations that go out there, and they postponed the date from April to May. So as soon as that happened, I set my mind right because I was like, I have a feeling it's going to be canceled, so I'm not going to get my hopes up. My biggest goal when it comes to competing for myself has been trying to hold on to the after show. Again, I talk about mindset with my girls that I want it to be long term for them, not just work towards our short term goal. And that's something that I've been working on for myself too. So I find myself like binging and losing myself after shows and then having to start all over again. So my one goal was to try to figure out how can I find a balance so that I can keep going even when the show's done. So I told myself that I have a feeling the show is going to be canceled. So I'm just going to keep grinding. So I already said in my head, if it gets canceled, I'm just going to train for a year because the more time you give your body, the better you show up. So I knew it was, and it got canceled. And so now I'm in training right now for next April of 2021.
long time away, but end goal's there.
Yeah,
It's there.
it is. Hey, I might as well push it out so I can keep going.
And I've kind of talked to some people who've competed. I work with some people who competed. How is it? How is it coming out of a competition? Because I've never competed, so I don't know what it feels like
Yeah.
when you're coming out after the last couple weeks. You're not eating much. You're dieting down. What does the mind feel like when you come out of that and like, hey, I can kind of eat whatever I want, or you know, I'm kind of free reigns.
Yeah, it's actually just like that. I describe it as the F it kind of mentality. Like and so it's funny, I did a couple talks on post show depression. And it's funny because I call it post show depression because that's just relating to me, but post event anything depression is kind of actually a real thing. So if you have a big event that you're working so hard for, you kind of get to the point where you're like, F this, I don't want to do it anymore because I've been so strict. I felt restricted. I just want to enjoy myself. I want to relax. And that was the mentality that actually sends you in like a spiral because you get in such a great shape and great mindset and great routine. And then all of a sudden you just decide to stop. Unfortunately, the weight piles back on fast because your body's just trying to respond to the quick changes that you had. Because it's like yelling at me like, hey girl, you've been eating nutrition like really
Heavy
well, very
food.
nourishing, and now you're eating and stuffing your face with dozens of donuts a day, but we don't know what to do with this. So it's interesting. So then you kind of like lose yourself mentally and you kind of fall into a mini depression, some longer than others depending upon how you feel, but it's just because now you don't look the same. You had such like a negative association with that restriction. So that's what I've been working on for myself is my mental state of like not viewing it as a restriction, viewing it more as nourishing my body. And yes, it's tough temporarily, but I should try to learn to slowly rebalance myself back out because there is a balance to have your goals and to eat what you want and drink what you want too. It's hard, but if you portion and you moderate properly, you can definitely find it. So that's been a really hard thing. A lot of people struggle with it differently. There's some people who have no problem. There's people like myself that really struggle with it after show. So it's definitely something I always tell people who compete to talk to somebody who has competed before about the post show and how to try to prepare yourself for that because it's something you definitely can't prepare for because you don't know until you go through it.
Yeah, I mean it's that's going to be tough on all aspects, and I found that out with athletes too. Maybe not high school athletes, but like NCAA college athletes. Once they're done, they're kind of in this like, what do I do state? mentally, and they're like, should I lift? Should I not? I don't have a strength coach anymore. Uh, and for bodybuilding, can't even fathom that, because cutting down calories for 2 weeks prior, I'd be like, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, that's the hard
I give
part.
you guys 100% credit for that one.
Yeah,
It'll
it's
be gone.
interesting though. The biggest misconception that people get, and a lot of people are coached wrong too. So that's a huge thing. Is you got to be coached right. I was eating upwards of like 1,800 calories for myself, and I was still losing weight. And people weren't understanding that I wasn't starving myself to lose weight. It was what I was eating that was helping me lean out. And it wasn't until like again those last couple of weeks that I definitely was cutting my calories down and restricting really low. But it's a very short term time that I'm doing that. And a lot of people kind of they think about that wrong, and they're kind of like, oh, you must starve yourself. And I'm like, no, I've been eating more food than most people. But yeah, as you get closer to the show, it gets harder, because then you get closer to like that 1,200 calorie, depending upon where you are. But like you get into that deficit, and that gets really tough for sure.
Is that when the hoodies come on, the headphones? You're like, don't talk to me.
You don't talk to
I gotta
anybody.
go.
Yeah. I had a
So
couple days where I was no carbs, and you could definitely tell when I had no carbs in. I was like, I'm so sorry. Even my employees that I used to work with, oh my god, they used to definitely tell. They were like, you have a low carb day today, don't you? And I'm like, oh my god, I'm so sorry.
So for the 1,800, what are you eating? Were you just eating like protein and vegetables and
Yeah, so it's
getting
been
that stuff in?
interesting. The past couple shows I've been trying to play with. My body personally loves carbs. That's the half Italian in me that my body loves them. So I've
You're
been
also an athlete.
yes,
I mean, young athlete. You grew up on carbs, so it's like, okay,
yes,
it's
we
built
used to
into
have
us.
pasta dinners and stuff. So
Yeah.
like, I used to think about that was like awesome. But we've been trying to play with my carbs to figure out where my carbs need to be so that I don't feel like crap, but I can still lean out enough. So main focus is always on protein, because a lot of people aren't getting enough protein, and especially for bodybuilders, you need more protein because your focus is strength building. And then you have to manipulate your fats and your carbs accordingly around there. So I'm very habitual with what I eat. I'm not very creative with my food at all. So I would like literally wake up, eggs was always my start. I would always have one meal of ground turkey, one meal of chicken, one meal of some type of fish like tuna or salmon, depending upon what I needed, or scallops. And I just kind of like just rotated on those. And that was my day. And then my carbs was pretty much like just the good grains of rice, like quinoa, brown rice, white rice, depending upon what I needed. And then my fats, I got a lot of my fats easily from avocados. That's my favorite. So that was easy.
And yeah, I think that's the tough thing. And for people competing and for clients is this nutrition that we get tossed into. Like, what's the right amount? And everyone's a little bit different.
Yeah.
For you, did you find that higher carbs actually made you perform and look better, or was it lower carbs?
Yeah, I actually played with both. Definitely had more strength and whatnot when it came to the higher carbs. There was a time that I rotated off of 3 days in a row where I would go zero carbs. My only carbs would come from like my vegetables, so no grain carbs or whatsoever. And so I would rely on my fat source. So it was kind of almost mimicking keto, but it wasn't exactly what keto is described as. And after a little bit, my body did actually still have some strength on zero. I just really wasn't happy with absolutely no carbs whatsoever. So what I found works the best for me personally is low carbs, but I need just enough. So we found out that like for me personally, 80 grams of carbs is like the golden number where I can still like be lean, feel good, and have the energy, but it's low enough that I'm able to kind of like burn that off really fast with my workouts.
And I think that's the most important thing for you. That's like 80 grams. Other people, that might not be enough, or that might be too much. And I think that's for as trainers, it's an ever going battle of to find the right balance, nutrition,
Yeah.
or dietary wise for clients. And for you, are you kind of seeing that with your clients? Do you have a kind of set blueprint that you like to use, or is it always like changing, ebbing and
Yeah,
flowing?
it's always changing because you really have to play with it. And that's what I try to explain to my clients. Nutrition is very confusing, even for people who are educated in nutrition. It's always changing. And the rules and regulations don't work for everybody, especially all the calculations and formulas that you use. So I have a couple different formulas that I compare together, and then I try to find out the best solution for the client that I have, depending upon what their goals, their needs are, what they currently are looking like and feeling like, and then kind of go from there. And then throughout the time that I work with them, I check in with them, like, how's your energy? How's your sleep been? How have your workouts been? How are you feeling? How are you looking after a couple weeks of the way that you are? And then I take all those aspects into consideration, and then I manipulate the numbers accordingly to where we started. The most important thing is teaching them that they can eat more because they're burning enough calories to be able to be in a deficit still, and that what makes up their calories is the most important. So again, if you're eating pizza, donut, all that stuff of a 1,500 calorie diet, it's going to store it as fat because it's not nourishing for your body. But if you eat 1,500 calories of carbs, of good carbs and good proteins and good fats, and you're nourishing your body, now you're still going to be able to lose that weight, which is really interesting. So it's a tough process to go through. I try to take it one step at a time and hit those small stepping stones with them so that they kind of like learn along the way, because I want them to take something out of it too. So it's interesting to go through, but it's definitely confusing. It's confusing as anything, but it's a trial and error for sure.
Yeah, that's what I tell a lot of my clients. It's like, this can work, it might not work. Well, we have to, test and measure. And once they do find something that works, and like you and most trainers, the same foods over and over again, it's like, we don't stray far on the diet plan. I would say it's tough for clients to find that balance at first. Like, usually it's ebb and flow, and they'll test and retest.
Absolutely.
Then they get on this meal. I don't really like the word meal plan, but they get on this habit, like trainers like us, where it's consistent food, the same food, and they see progress. Like, I have a client, we're testing week over week, and he's got some room to gain, so he's gained 2 pounds each week exponentially. But after we put him on a meal plan, but last week he kind of fell off a little bit. But he said, "Hey, my weekends weren't as high enough calories I needed." I was like, "Well, that's the thing. Now we know, and we can keep going."
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. It's kind of like trying it and then finding out what you're doing and what it's working for, and then kind of go from there. So yeah, absolutely.
All right. So next we're going to do some quick hitter questions.
Absolutely. I'm going to walk and talk because my computer's going to die and I don't want to lose you, but continue because I'm going to still answer these as I go.
All right. What is your favorite exercise?
Ooh, I have to pick one.
That's a good one.
My favorite. Okay, let's see. I am definitely like a regular female in that aspect, that I love leg day. So that's one thing. So when it comes to legs, I think my favorite is definitely deadlifts now, because I feel the strongest. I feel kind of like just like lifting weight off the ground like that is pretty intense, and I can lift pretty heavy too, so it feels pretty nice to be able to have that same balance, being like, all right, I can lift some really good weight and feel pretty good about myself at the same time, which is pretty nice. So I would say deadlifts is probably my favorite exercise to do.
Take that one. All right, next one we got high reps or low reps. Are you a volume person or are you a strength person?
So most girls would absolutely say high reps. I'm definitely, again, the girl who focuses on strength first. So I love the low reps. I also think that it's done faster too.
See, I would say the same thing, but some people love high volume. That's just like, they go for it over and over.
They feel like when it comes to females too, and I can say this because I'm a female, and I train my females for this specific reason. I try to teach them that like high reps don't actually just get you to your goals. Having that mixture of both is really what you guys need. So when I teach them to lift heavier at less reps, like there's a whole different type of like success that comes from doing that. And so a lot of people think that you burn more and you can lean out more with that. But especially for females, we respond really well to strength training. So if you can drop those reps and increase that weight, it actually works out better in your favor.
That is the biggest one that I always get a little pushback on from some of my female clients. They're like, "Oh, but won't I get big and bulky if I lift heavy?" And I'm like, "No." So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that conversation. I'm always having it. I'm like, listen, I lift as heavy as I can all the time. And I say to them, I go, I'm not going to be offended. Do you think I look bulky? And they're always like, no, you don't. And I was like, but I lift heavier than most guys do. And I was like, you have to understand that we don't carry enough testosterone naturally in our body to be able to build that type of muscle that guys do. There's even a lot of guys that struggle doing that naturally by themselves, hence why steroids exist in our bodybuilding industry in general. So you, like I said, females respond really, really well to strength training. We actually build that nice tone, lean muscle physique that a lot of females are looking for. Like every single time I'm like, who's your role model? And I'm like, they got that by lifting heavy. They're like, mind's blown. I'm like, yeah, it's really good for you. Cuts down that fat, replace it with some muscle, and you're golden.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I can't really say that because I'm obviously not a female, but I can't, like, when they say like, oh, this, I saw this person on Instagram, they're having this results. I'm usually they're probably doing what you're doing, high protein intake,
Yep.
higher calories, and they're varying rep ranges. Would
Absolutely.
I be correct on that?
Absolutely. And again, you don't have to be like wanting a bodybuilder's body either. Like a lot of my girls are like, I don't want to be as like built as you, but I'm like, no, but you still have these goals in mind that you want to lean out, and you're going to respond really well to it when you start to train heavier. So I always teach my girls that every week that they're working with their workouts, always try to lift a little bit more. And that's why like our challenge groups go for 8 weeks that I do with my girls online. That's why week 2 and week 4, they were already seeing results. Like it's
Really?
crazy. So that's all it is. Just trying to challenge and keep that diversity going with your training. It's really important.
And with these challenge groups, are there 8-week blocks?
Yep.
Are you taking groups of people, or is it kind of like, are they working to one goal, individual goals,
Yeah, no, I take
challenges
groups of
within the group?
people with all different types of goals. So I have 2 girls on my program that are actually specifically trying to build more muscle on, and they have a weight gain that is their main goal because they're on the skinnier side. So a lot of people actually forget about the small people out there, the little people out there, that there are some people that do actually want to build out their body and they can lean out and build strength at the same time. And then I have some other girls too. Majority of my groups usually tend toward like the weight loss, but with my groups specifically, we use the scale as the third reference of all your measurements. It's not the first, because I always preach on my platform, the number on the scale does not dictate the way that you're going to look in your body. And a lot of people have that misconception about that scale. So it's really important to teach my girls about that. So it's not a weight loss transformation, who loses the most weight. It's more about the transformation as a whole, going back to that mindset that me and you were talking about, like who from the beginning to the end transformed their body, not to only just to hit their goals, whatever their goals were, build muscle or lose weight, but also how did you learn through this process and where did you personally grow from the beginning to the end? And that's how we kind of pick our challenge winners for them.
Love it. So they're in a mindset program and they don't even know it, because
Yeah.
yeah, I think with especially nowadays, or society, we're fixated on numbers. So if you're at a certain number, it can be good, bad, or whatever.
Yeah.
But like you said, sometimes it doesn't really matter, because you can be at a certain number, feel a certain way, and be like, I don't even care about that number.
Yeah, I show them a lot. I usually have a couple of my own personal pictures that I try to share with them. And I'm like, I'm not afraid to tell girls my weight. I know a lot of girls are really nervous about sharing their weight with people, but I'm like, I'm 155 pounds right now. But if you look at 2 side-by-side pictures, I could be 155 pounds at the same time, like I was a couple years ago, but I'm 2 different completely looking bodies, but I'm the same number on the scale. And that's the really important thing to remember, is like, how are you carrying that 150 pounds? And own it too, because yeah, being 135 sounds all like great and awesome, but I might not look the way that I really want to look if I were to be 135 pounds. So I'm happy and proud to say that I like how I look. And if it happens to be 155, it happens to be 140, 130, I don't really mind, because it's more about what I see in front of me, because nobody sees the scale except for me.
That's what it's about. How you feel in life,
Yeah,
and that's what you want to feel good. All
absolutely.
right. It is arm day. I like to call it Flex Friday.
Love
What is your first exercise you go to, and your first song that you're going to play to pump yourself up for arm
Oh,
day?
love it. First song right now for sure has been Rockstar. That has been my favorite song. I heard it on TikTok, of course, and saw the dance. But love that song. And then Arm Day, I definitely go right to shoulders. Like lateral raises are my go-to. I love those. I've always felt the strongest with those. With shoulder head over presses, but I just something about laterals that I just love. So lateral raises are my go-to.
That was not an answer I was expect from some people. I usually get like tricep press downs or alternating dumbbell curls. I love it. Lateral raises. So
There,
there we have it. We're
if I could do
hammering some
all day
bells.
every day, I would. Yep.
So kind of wrapping up here. What do you have going on for the rest of 2020? I know we're kind of in a pandemic, but it looks like you're in a good spot. What do you got coming up going on this year?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that when we fell into this pandemic that Ryan and I talked about for our business was there's going to be two things that happen with this. And this goes for anything, not just business owners too, but just like in life, like people with their fitness goals and people with their regular jobs. Like there's going to be people who fold under the pressure because they don't know how to adapt to the situation, or there's going to be people who rise and become great. And I think the people that are more capable of adapting to changes are probably going to be the ones that are more successful and come out of this pandemic on top versus feeling like they're stuck under a rock. So thankfully, I feel like personally, as being entrepreneurs, we decided to kind of like hit the ground running. And like day one, when we were in quarantine, actually, even kind of before that, when we were like quarantine could happen, what do we need to do in order to survive? And we kind of go right into survival mode. Like, where do we see ourselves going into? This is definitely a new bump in the road that we weren't expecting. And we just started kind of rattling off different ideas from each other. And it's definitely one of the best things about our relationship that I love having. So it's really kind of cool to not only just have like a business partner, but also your partner in life is your business partner. But we would have really deep, meaningful conversations about like what we want for ourselves and our lives. So we're actually going to be taking a new couple steps in the next couple months or so that are still kind of like TBD under everything, but we're looking to expand Peak Kinetics even more than we already have. So that's going to be our next step, is to continue working with the virtual world and how we can continue to get better and continue to help more and more people as we go. So stay tuned for that, because that's going to be our next step, is expanding Peak Kinetics. So we're really excited about it.
Big things that comes at the right time.
Yeah, very much so.
That's awesome. And I was a little, I don't know what you call stalking or creeping, but getting some information on you.
Love it.
This weekend, you have a Run to Crush Cancer.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is going to air a little bit after that. Now, do you do this every year, or is this a couple times a year? I want to get this out so people can know. I'm also actually going to donate after this for your cause. Tell me a little bit about that and why you set that up and what you're doing for it.
Oh, well, you're awesome. Thank you for even asking about that. That's like such a small thing in the grand scheme of things, but thank you. So I do it every single year. And so it's for my niece. My niece is like my love, my everything. I only have one so far, so she's spoiled. But my sister ended up kind of like raising her as a single mom. So I kind of like stepped in with my sister to kind of help raise her. So as much as she's my niece, I feel like she is my own, even though I didn't birth her, but I treat her like that. And so we have a very close relationship. But when my sister had her, it's actually just a little bit before, my sister had an issue, had to get sent into the emergency room about a month before my niece Mackenzie was born, and they checked my sister. My sister was okay, and then they looked at the baby, and they saw that Kenzie kind of had like this hernia-looking thing in some part of her lower stomach area. They said it was very normal since infants are in a fetal position when they're in the womb, that it was probably just like a small hernia that would work itself out when she was born. They weren't really concerned. So long story short, she was born. Beautiful, healthy little girl. Loved her when she was little and came out finally into the world. And then we had to go for testing to check on that little spot because we just wanted to make sure everything was okay. And then we found out after long days and long nights of testing, because it kept going and going, that they did this one test that we found out that the little spot that she had was actually called neuroblastoma, and she was considered stage 4S at that point, which is pretty fatal in infants. So what it is, it's a mutation of her nerve cells while she was developing that happened, and it caused her to break out in a very plentiful amount of tumors that aligned around her adrenal glands, and it usually spreads to the other organs. And hers was really rapid. We thankfully, like, it's a blessing from the gods that, like, we even found it, because they don't show many signs and symptoms that they have the tumors, and that's why it's so fatal. Because they're babies, they can't talk about their feelings and everything like that. So they said that the 2 ways that we would be able to tell if it was getting to the point where she was having a flare up and her tumors were growing rapidly, which they thought could happen, but weren't sure if it was going to, because they don't know a lot about this type of cancer. They said that she would get tiny little blue bruises all over her body for no reason, and her stomach would start to bulge, because that means it started attacking the liver. And that's exactly what happened, and it happened very fast. So at the age of about 3 to 4 months, we had to admit her in for her first round of chemo treatment. And then from there, she went through multiple rounds of chemo. Thankfully, she didn't need any radiation, but she went through a lot of, like, surgical procedures and things. And they couldn't just take it out, because it was too many little tumors that were covering now her liver, that it just got to be so much. But thankfully, about a year and a half after that, so right before her second birthday, I got the phone call from my sister. I wasn't able to get to that last visit, but she called me crying. We found out that we were able to declare her in remission. So she's been in remission now, oh my gosh, for almost 5 years, which is incredible. Awesome. So every single year, ever since she was born, I have run in this race that I found. It was this incredible woman. Her name is Megan, and she started a 5K to crush cancer because her daughter, who's a couple years older than Mackenzie, also had the same exact cancer, neuroblastoma 4S. And she started this run to kind of raise awareness for childhood cancer. And she reached out to my sister when we were in, like, the biggest pit that we could ever be in, and she raised money to help our family when we couldn't financially support the medical bills. And she was just like a godsend and a huge support for my sister. So she started having these 5Ks. So literally, that first year that I joined, Kenzie wasn't even 1. I put her in a stroller, and she's been running with me ever since. So every year I grab her, and now the past 2 years she's been actually running with me, which has been really fun, and usually doesn't make it all the way, so I put her on my back, but that's okay. So
extra resistance, you're good.
We get through it together. So we've been started in a stroller working together, and now we're running side by side. So she's going to be joining me for my run on Sunday again, which would be awesome. And it goes to any families out there who are struggling through any type of childhood cancer, that are struggling financially. The 5K to crush cancer goes to help support those families at that time, like they did for ours.
Love it. And for this, can you donate at any time of the year for this?
Absolutely. Yeah. She has a website up all year round, which is great. And it goes to the For Kids' Sake Foundation, which is wonderful. And it's all kind of intertwined together. So I can absolutely post up more information on that, so you guys can find that too.
We will include that in the show notes here for the podcast, and a link for that. Other than that, where can people find you?
I'm really big on Instagram. That's my main home, sure you know. So yeah, Instagram at JC Fitness for you. Spell out those words right on out, and that's where you guys can find me. And I like to be up there both on my stories, IGTV, on my regular platform, just kind of connecting as much with everybody out there with a real life scenario, that even though I'm a personal trainer and I seem to look like I got it all together, that I'm just like everybody else. So I'm really trying to be out there and reach to everybody, that we need to start accepting everybody to not be perfect, to be okay that we all look and act different ways from each other, and just accept no matter what shape, size, color, anything that you are, we should all be in this together. So that's kind of the message that I like to preach out there.
Love it. You mean, we're trainers, we're not just machines?
You know, everybody thinks that. I'm like, I love cookies too, guys. Like, I can eat. Yes, we try. No, it's good.
Yeah, I know. People think we're this, like, 24/7 we're on. It's like, okay, that's great. Not all the time.
That would be nice.
Enjoy.
I'm still working on that myself, so.
We all are. Well, Jen, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for showing up during this time. Anything else you'd like to say? Closing thoughts?
No,
on mindset,
honestly, thank
exercise, and
you so
nutrition.
much for having me. I mean, this was so much fun. I love being able to be out there and talk to people and hopefully help relate to everybody's kind of scenarios that they're in. And I love that we literally two started together in this kind of like fitness
Look at
journey. So it's kind of cool to say, like, as soon as like I was getting on track, like me and you were friends at the get go. I remember moving into Bridgewater and you guys were the first two that I met. So it's
that. Yep.
cool to see how much you've grown as well. So I'm really proud of everything that I
Crazy.
see from you. So keep it up and thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll have to do it again if Ryan wants to come on, and we
Absolutely.
can talk about if he's up for it, his business, and what you guys have going on. Maybe once you're fully unloaded into this world at the end of
Yeah.
2020, do a big thing.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. We hope you gained something from this episode. Our mission is to help people live their best life, both physically and mentally. Check out thinkfitnesslife.com for additional resources and schedule a complimentary assessment with one of us. We're always here to help.